Welcome to Old Man Sports Talk. I'm your host, Old Man Nate, and today we're going to have a show for the 2023 college football preview of the Southeastern Conference. Well, folks, we're just a couple of weeks away from college football kicking off. And I don't know how excited you are, but I am extremely excited. Like I said, we're going to talk about the Southeastern Conference real quick. That's been the dominant conference of football over the last decade. It seems like. Um, we're gonna end our college football preview shows with the Southeastern Conference, and then starting next week, we're going to do a show on who we think will make the college football playoff, and then the show after that, we will reveal Old Man Nate's top 25. So we're going to start in the west side of the Southeastern Conference, and we're going to start with Alabama. So Alabama has a running back and three wide receivers returning. Their quarterback battle is not been it's up for grabs. We do not know who is going to be the starter. The last I heard, there's actually four guys competing for the starting job. The returner who got the backup when Bryce Young went down, Monroe, is not the leading candidate. They also got a transfer in from Notre Dame who played some, really wasn't their main quarterback, but he's doing pretty well. And then they got a freshman, and then I think a guy that was already on the roster for a couple years, all battling it out. Now, to me, if you've listened to the rest of my shows, you know quarterback is to me has got to be established to have a chance to win your conference, especially the national championship. Now, given Alabama's history, that's not always the case. Okay, their last championship, I believe they won. Well, they won one with Bryce Young, but before Bryce Young, they had remember now, Jalen Hurts was a starter and then got benched at halftime, and Tua came in as a true freshman and led them to the national championship. And then the following year, it was Tua's job. Jalen still stayed on the team, came in and rescued them in the SEC championship, but did not. They did not end up winning the national championship that year. And then Jalen Hurts left for Oklahoma. So Alabama has brought in young quarterbacks and been successful, but I just don't. I mean, I can't sit here and say that they're going to be Alabamish. I'll put it that way. Alabama who's win championships without an established quarterback. The conference has gotten stronger since those days. So you really can't just outright say, yeah, they can win it they can scoot by with a brand new quarterback. They can just rely on the receivers. They can rely on the running backs. So we'll wait to see. But I've got them actually losing 3 games this year, including losing to Tennessee, at Auburn, and let me look real quick who I had the other third loss to. At Texas A&M. Okay, so 2 road games at A&M and Auburn. I've got them losing, and then I've got them losing also at home to Tennessee. Next will follow LSU. LSU. Oh, by the way, Alabama is only returning 5 offensive and 5 defensive players that got significant playing time last year. So besides them not having an established quarterback, they also are losing some other key players, and that's why I kind of got them losing 3 games this year. I got them going 6-2 in the conference and losing 3 games overall. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I said losing 3 games, but I've got them losing to Tennessee and Auburn, not losing to Texas A&M. Okay, and then I do got them losing to Texas. I do got them losing to Texas. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it's the second game of the year, and I'm worried about their quarterback. And to be quite frank, honest, they got they escaped in Texas last year because the referee didn't call a hold. Okay, on that final drive for Alabama, when Bryce Young makes that 30-yard run, there's an obvious hold right there on the right tackle that was not called, and he don't get out there with that. They don't, that play's called back, and then it's like 3rd and 20, and it'd been hard for them to escape. I said the same thing in the Big 12 briefing preview. So Texas has an established quarterback, and they got a backup that's really good too. So I just think that Texas will be good enough to go into Alabama and win. So Texas, I got them losing to Texas. I got them losing to Tennessee, and I got them losing that final game to Auburn. The next team I got up is LSU. They're returning 8 offense and 7 defensive players, so more depth. They do return their quarterback, and they return 3 wide receivers. Now, the problem with LSU is their quarterback likes to run a lot more than what we would like to see quarterbacks run. So if teams are able to stop him from running and force him to throw the ball, I'm not saying he can't throw the ball, but he's a much better runner than he is throwing. So I just don't think that they're going to be national championship contenders this year. I've got them going 9-3 and 6-2 also in the conference. I got them losing to Florida State, at Alabama, and I've got them being upset at Ole Miss. I think they'll beat Texas A&M. So, and here's another thing: Army is going to come in to Baton Rouge, and they're going to give them a game. Army is going to be uh, an Army team like they was about 5 years ago when they went into Norman, and the year after that they went into Michigan, and they almost beat Oklahoma and Michigan both those years. They're going to be that force this year, and the way they like to slow the ball down, just pound you and pound you and pound you. I understand the SEC is a physical team, and they'll be up for the challenge, but just the way they're going to be able to control the ball, keep Jalen Daniels on the sideline, it'll be a close game. I think LSU wins, but I think it will be a close game. So I got them going 9-3 and 6-2. Texas A&M, who returns 10 offensive players and 10 defensive players. Hey, this is the 3rd year. Remember 2 years ago, Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M had a #1 recruiting class, and they have not been able to reproduce off of that. This is the year, okay? They have 10 of those guys on each side of the ball returning. If Texas A&M cannot produce this year, then Jimbo Fisher might be looking for a new job. And I know it sounds like crazy because, they spent a lot of money for this guy, and they're still probably paying on contracts for Kevin Sumlin and maybe even a couple other coaches, right? But Texas, they got that deep money. The state of Texas has deep oil money, and so letting go of Jimbo Fisher is not something that they can't do. They can bring in somebody else, and they'll pay him too. So I think if Texas A&M don't produce this year, and by producing, I mean win at least 10 games, Jimbo Fisher might be looking for a new job. If you've heard any of my telecasts before, I've always said, or I have said, that Jimbo Fisher is one of the most overrated coaches in college football. He won a championship at Florida State, but that team was pretty much handed to him. And if it wasn't for Jameis Winston, he wouldn't have won one. So I do think Jimbo Fisher is way overrated. He's not a very good coach, in my opinion. He's an okay coach. He's gotten paid a heck of a lot of money for being an okay coach. So they do return their quarterback, a running back, 2 wide receivers, and tight end. So they return a lot on offense and defense. Like I said, 10 on each side of the ball. But guess what? I don't think they get it done this year. I just don't think that, like I said, Jimbo Fisher's a good coach, So I don't think they get it done. I got Texas A&M going 8-4 and 5-3 in the conference. I got them losing at Miami, to Alabama, at Tennessee, and at LSU. And they could lose a fifth game. They might lose at Ole Miss. Okay, so yeah, I got them going 8-4 and 5-3 in the conference. Okay, Ole Miss returning 9 offensive players and 7 defensive players. But despite them returning 9 offensive players, including their quarterback, running back, and wide receiver, their quarterback is not who returning from last year. Dart is not the locked-in starter. They've they've brought in Spencer Sanders from Oklahoma State, and you really could see both of those guys play. And playing 2 quarterbacks is not gonna. To me, it means you got a problem. And so, unless one of them separates themselves, could be an issue. Lane Kiffin knows how to coach offensive side of the ball. And so I believe they can score points. Their defense, they got enough guys returning on defense to surprise some teams, but I just don't think they're good enough to be in conversation for a conference championship this year. So I got them going 9-3, 5-3 in conference. I got them losing at Alabama, Texas A&M, and at Georgia. Or I'm sorry, not Texas A&M, at Georgia and at Mississippi State. I got them losing that game at Mississippi State. So I got them winning Texas A&M. But like I said just a while ago, they could lose that game. The next team we're going to talk about is the Arkansas Razorbacks, who only returned 4 offensive players and 6 defensive players. They do return their quarterback and their running back. And their quarterback is really good. But I just don't think that they're going to be good enough, especially on the offensive side of the ball, to really be a factor in the conference. I got them going 6-6 and 3-5. I got them losing to BYU, LSU, Texas A&M, Florida, and Ole Miss. So, yeah, I just without any more not any depth on offense, I just don't see they'll be a factor. I know it's really surprising to a lot of Arkansas fans, but really look at what you got coming back. Yeah, your quarterback's really good, but if you're putting all the pressure on him, you better have some standout receivers, and that running back better be really good, or they're not going to win very many games. Auburn's the next team we're going to talk about. They got 8 offensive and 9 defensive players returning, including their quarterback, running back, and wide receiver. They could surprise some teams this year, but I got them going 7-5, 3-5 in conference. I got them losing at Texas A&M, Georgia, and LSU, at Arkansas, and then of course Alabama. Now that Arkansas game, they could end up winning, but yeah, I just don't think they're going to be in the conversation to be considered for the conference champion. And the last team in the West is Mississippi State, who returns 8 offensive players, but only 4 on the defensive side of the ball. They do return their quarterback, a running back, and 2 wide receivers. It'll be interesting to see what type of offense they run now. Remember, this is the first year without Mike Leach, who was a genius on the offensive side of the ball. However, I'm not sure if they're going to keep the same style of offense that he had or not. And with only 4 defensive players returning, it's going to be really difficult for them to play SEC football with not any depth. So 6-6 in the conference, 2-6. I'm sorry, 6-6 overall, 2-6 in the conference. They got a tough schedule of LSU, at South Carolina, at Arkansas, at Auburn, at Texas A&M. But I do got them beating Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl to cap off their season and send them to a bowl game. So now we're going to go over the East. Start off with the 2-time defending national champs, the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia is returning 6 offensive players and 7 defensive players. but they're not returning their quarterback. They're returning a running back, wide receiver, and Brock Bowers, the best tight end in the country, on the offensive side of the ball. But again, they're not returning their quarterback. And if I've said numerous times, without a proven quarterback, I'm not going to pick you to win your conference. I do got them going. And by the way, Georgia's got the easiest schedule in college football. Yes, that includes playing in the what is called the toughest conference in the country in the SEC. They still have the easiest schedule in college football. Take a look at this schedule. UT Martin, Ball State, South Carolina, home against South Carolina. UAB, their first 4 games at home. At Auburn, Kentucky, at Vanderbilt. Then they play Florida in the largest cocktail party. Missouri at home, Ole Miss at home, at Tennessee, and at Georgia Tech. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games at home, a neutral site game, and only 4 road games. They only, as a matter of fact, 2 of those road games, Vanderbilt and Tennessee, that's the same state. They only leave Georgia they only go outside of Georgia 3 times. Well, 4 times, but I mean in the 3 other states. Florida, Tennessee, and where's the other one? Oh, and Alabama. They go to Auburn. All the rest of the games are in Georgia. And that Florida game is a neutral site game. So they're not going to Gainesville. They go to a neutral site to play Florida. They go to Vanderbilt, they go to Tennessee, and they go to Auburn. The rest of their games are in the state of Georgia. So it's a very easy schedule, especially for a 2-time defending national champion. All right. But I do got them losing a game. I got them losing at Tennessee to the next to last game of the season. And here's the reason why. Because they're not going to be challenged. And I understand that game is going to probably be they understand that game is going to be the toughest game they probably play all season. But they're not going to be challenged the rest of them, and they're probably going to just be sleepwalking and get caught up by Tennessee. So next we're going to talk about Tennessee. They're only returning 5 offensive players and 7 defensive players, but they do have a quarterback. Even though he wasn't their main starter, he did come in when their starter got hurt last year, and so he did get significant playing time, and he had some good performances. And then they also have a running back. Running back returning and 2 wide receivers. Now, here's the thing: Tennessee's schedule is tougher than Georgia's, but their more challenging games outside of Alabama, they all got at home. Okay, they get at Florida is another tough one, but it's not like, Florida has not been the Florida of the early 2000s. Since Tim Tebow left, they haven't been the same. I know they're trying to get back there, and I do think that they will be a little bit better than they have been, but they're not Florida of old. So they got South Carolina at home, A&M at home, and Georgia at home. Okay, they do go to Alabama, but here's another thing. Like I said earlier, I just don't think Alabama is the Alabama of old, and I think Tennessee is a rising team. The offense that they run, is a lot of the SEC teams haven't caught on how to defend it yet. So I got them going into Alabama and winning. Like I already mentioned, I got them beating Georgia, and I've got them right now running the table. When they play Georgia on November 18th, I got them both teams being undefeated. Now I understand by that kind of contradicts what I said earlier. Georgia won't be It'll be sleepwalking. But you're the two-time defending national champion, Georgia Bulldogs. And Tennessee is trying to get that reputation. They're going to be hungry. So I've got Tennessee upsetting Georgia, and I got Georgia. The following week they play Vanderbilt. Look at this. Look at this. Okay, between Georgia they play at Missouri, and then afterward they play Vanderbilt. Two of the easiest games you can play in the SEC. So they will have time to prepare for Georgia, even though they don't have a bye week when they're playing Missouri, and then they'll they'll be able to close out the deal at home against Vanderbilt. Okay, I was reading some maybe on a neutral site, but still they got Vanderbilt. Okay. The next team we're going to talk about is South Carolina, who has 6 offensive players returning and 4 defensive players. They do return their highly talented quarterback and Spencer Rattler, a running back, and 2 wide receivers. I'm sorry, quarterback, and 2 wide receivers. They're not going to be the South Carolina team that used to get beat up on before Coach Beamer got there, but they're not going to be contending for no conference championship. They might upset a team like they did. They did beat Tennessee last year, okay, at home. They did beat them, and that was with the backup at the time, and now will be the current starter at Tennessee. But I think Tennessee gets the job done this year at home against South Carolina, and I got South Carolina. I got South Carolina losing their opener. It's going to be a great game between North Carolina, but I got North Carolina winning that one. And then they're going to lose at Georgia and at Tennessee. So they're going to lose 3 games, 3 of their first 5 games. Then they'll start winning, and then they'll lose at Texas A&M. And then they'll win, close out the season with 4 wins in a row, including a win at home for the second year in a row against Clemson. So I got them going 8-4 and 5-3 in the conference. Next team up, we got Kentucky. Now, there's a lot of people that think that Kentucky is going to be the Kentucky of last year. I don't. Yes, they're returning 10 offensive players, but only 5 defensive players. You remember last year, what held that team together was their defense. They will not have the defense they had last year. And they struggled offensively despite having Will Levis at quarterback. So they only return, despite 2 wide receivers, they only have 2 wide receivers that got significant playing time. They got a new quarterback. So here we are talking about the quarterbacks again. That if you don't have a returning quarterback, I'm not picking you to win the conference. So I got them losing. I got them having a losing season this year, going 4-8, 2-6 in the conference. Plus I got them losing at Vanderbilt. Okay, that's how bad of a season I got them going. I got them losing, of course, at Georgia, to Tennessee, at Mississippi State, to Alabama, at South Carolina, and at Louisville. I got them losing 5 out of their last 6 games, or their last 5, and 6 out of their last 7. So, yeah, I'm not saying Coach Stoops is going to be on the hot seat. Mark Stoops is going to be on the hot seat. Well, because Kentucky is not like Alabama or Georgia or Oklahoma, where you have a bad season, then they start talking about replacements. But and by bad season, that's a bad season for Oklahoma, Texas, Georgia, and Alabama, 4-8, so 2-6 in the conference. I don't think that they will be that bad with him, but there will be some rumblings, and if he doesn't bounce back next year, then he could really be on the hot seat. Next team we're going to talk about is the Florida Gators. They returned 6 offensive players and 5 defensive players, but here they are again, not returning their quarterback. They are returning a running back and wide receiver. So it's just going to be tough to win ball games in the conference like this, SEC, when you don't have a returning quarterback. So we're going to go. I believe they're going to lose their open. They got lucky last year winning their opening game against Utah. you remember they scored a late touchdown, but gave Utah like a minute and something to go down, drive the field, and Utah got all the way down there, and with like 15 seconds to go in the game, they throw an interception in the end zone, and Florida held on to win the ball game. I don't think it's going to be that close this year. It's in Utah. I think Utah wins this. I think it'll be a good game, and I'm looking forward to that game actually. Um, but I think Utah wins by at least 10 points. Then I've also, of course, they got to play Tennessee, um, at South Carolina, Georgia, at LSU, and then Florida State. So I got them going 6-6 and 4-4 in the conference. Then we got the Missouri Tigers, who have who are returning 7 offensive players and 8 defensive players. I think their defense is going to be decent and probably a little bit better than it was last year. And they had a good defense last year. Their offense, though, when their quarterback is just not consistent enough to me. He is. They do have a returning quarterback. They do have returning running back and 2 wide receivers, but their quarterback is just not consistent enough for me. Now Cook, I love his story. He's a home state kid who grew up a Missouri Tiger fan. His family has barbecue restaurant that's one of the best in the state. I love his story. I love barbecue. However, he's not consistent enough. And unless he improves a lot this season, he's going to get their coach fired. That's right. I'm calling it right now. The head coach from Missouri, who, let me see, is see if I can get his name here because I don't know it. I don't know it. Yeah, yeah. I don't see it over here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time looking, but yeah, I just I think they get fired. I mean, look, you got to play. Now they're going to start off hot. South Dakota, Middle Tennessee. I think they beat Kansas State, the defending Big 12 champs. I think they do. It's a home game. And Memphis. But then they start losing. In fact, I got them losing at Vanderbilt. Then they have LSU, at Kentucky, South Carolina, at Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, and at Arkansas. I got them. The only win I got them on that last 8 games. The only win I got them winning is Florida. So, um, yeah, or I think they might pull off the win at Kentucky too. But yeah, I got them going 6-6 overall and 2-6 in the conference. And if they lose that game at Arkansas, their coach is fired. You can understand them losing at Georgia to Tennessee. If they do beat Florida, it might save him for a week. But if they lose to Florida too, he might be gone. Then the decision be made, and then it fall up with a loss at Arkansas. He's gone. And what's that going to mean? Remember, they just signed the number 1 defensive tackle in the country, and some people say the number 1 player in the country in Wannery. So, what does that mean? Now, if if they fire him, then he may not be there. He may be going to look at either Georgia or Oklahoma. So, come signing day, and that would be a huge blow to the Missouri Tigers. So, but we'll see. I'm not saying that for a fact because I don't know this kid if he signed because of the head coach or whatever. Um, Missouri does have a history of putting D linemen in the NFL. So it could be. I mean, he's a home state kid. Maybe he just wanted to play closer to home, where his family can come watch him every week. I don't know, but who knows? If they fire that head coach, we all know that could change kids' minds on where they go play. It don't always, but sometimes, a lot of times, it does. Last team we're going to talk about is the Vanderbilt Commodores, who returned 7 offensive players and 8 defensive players, including their quarterback and 3 wide receivers. I think they're going to be, again, they're not going to compete for conference championship, but I think that they're going to upset some teams this year. And, not like back when they had O.J. Cutler at quarterback, but they will be a little bit better than they were last year. And so I got them beating Kentucky and Missouri, but losing at Florida, losing to Georgia, losing at Ole Miss, beating Auburn, losing at South Carolina, and of course losing at Tennessee. So I got them going 7-5, just 3-5 in the conference. They got four fairly easy non-conference games. They could easily start off the season at 6-0, and then just have it downhill after that. But yeah, that's what I got Vanderbilt doing. So we're going to go ahead now. Well, real quick, if you haven't already, please take the time to like, subscribe, and leave comments, and ring the bell, and leave some comments on what you think, who you think is going to win the SEC, who you think is going to play in the SEC championship. I'm about to tell you who I think is going to in just a second, and who do you think will win the SEC this year. Also, at this time, if you haven't, or actually after the end of the show, take some time and go to oldmancoffee.shop and get you some coffee. And then also, we have a tumbler right back here. Go to get you a tumbler. And then you can get you some t-shirts. You can do all that at oldmancoffee.shop. So let me reveal who, in what order I think the teams will finish. We'll start with the West. In 7th place, I got Mississippi State finishing at 2-6. At 6th, I got the Auburn Tigers finishing at 3-5. And then at 5th, I got Arkansas also finishing at 3-5. I got them beating Auburn in a tiebreaker. In 4th, I got Texas A&M at 5-3. And in 3rd, I got the Ole Miss Rebels also at 5-3. And again, I got them winning the head-to-head with Texas A&M. So I got Jimbo Fisher out of here at the end of the season. In 2nd, I got the LSU Tigers at 6-2. And that leaves number 1, the Alabama Crimson Tide, representing the West and playing for the SEC Conference Championship at 6-2. I got them winning the head-to-head match with the LSU Tigers. In the East, I got the Missouri Tigers finishing at 2-6, and that's right, I got their coach out of there. He's going to be gone. In 6th, I got Kentucky also at 2-6, as I got them winning the head-to-head with the Missouri Tigers. Vanderbilt, I got them finishing in 5th place at 3-5. Florida in 4th at 4-4. South Carolina in 3rd at 5-3. This is going to shock some people right here. At 2, them Georgia Bulldogs, 2-time defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs at 7-1. And then who's going to represent the East? That leaves the Tennessee Volunteers. I got them going undefeated in the conference at 8-0, and they will 12-0 overall and take on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, here's the thing right now, before we talk about who is going to win the conference championship, I want to throw this scenario out real quick. We got Alabama, even though they got 3 losses overall, we got an undefeated Tennessee at 12-0, and you got a 1-loss Georgia Bulldogs. Now, you can guarantee if this scenario comes, you're going to have Tennessee ranked number 1 in the country. Georgia is going to be ranked 3 or 4. And Alabama is probably going to be sitting at like 9, something like that, okay? 9, maybe 10, something like that, with 3 losses, right? And their 2 losses now are to, or two of those, their 2 conference losses are to Tennessee and who did I say what the other one was? Let's look over here real quick. I got the other loss to Texas A&M, Tennessee, and their home loss to Texas A&M. Okay, or on the road loss to Texas A&M. So, anyways, um, if Alabama, if Alabama was to upset Tennessee, then what a scenario that would be. You would have overall a 10-3 conference champ in Alabama and a 12-1 Tennessee coach or runner up, and then you would have an 11-1 Georgia. Okay. Could 3 SEC teams make the college football playoff? Could Alabama jump all the way up from 9, 10 seed all the way up to, say, number 4 seed? Well, there would have to be a lot of losses in the other conferences. You definitely could not. You could have. I mean, you definitely couldn't have a team like the ACC or the Big 12 unless it was Oklahoma or Texas. ACC champion would have to be an undefeated Florida State or Clemson. Pac-12 undefeated champion would have to be USC, Auburn, Washington, maybe Utah. Okay. Big Ten champion would have to be Penn State, Ohio State, or Michigan. The way Nebraska has played since they joined the Big Ten, even if they was undefeated, um, or 1 loss, would it stop a 3 loss? Would it guarantee a 3 loss team not make it? So it's going to be extremely difficult for a three loss SEC team, even if they are the conference champion, to make the playoff. Now, this is the last year of the 14 playoff. So next year it'll be 12. So they would definitely make it with 12 teams. So I just don't see. There's no way, in my opinion, that a 3 loss team or a 3 teams from the SEC would make the playoff with out of 3 out of 4 teams. This wouldn't happen. I understand it'd be the conference champ, but they just be left out. But what's ironic about this situation is next year, the way the laws or rules are written now, Alabama would jump all the way up to a minimum of a 6 seed. Okay, because the top 6 spots go to conference champions. So, and now they would probably jump higher than 6 seed. They might jump all the way up to 4. But again, it just depends how the rest of the conferences are doing. So you can't just say, yeah, they're going to be the number 1 team. Obviously, it's the best conference in football. Who cares? They got 3 losses. They're the conference champ. They're the number 1 seed. No, it's not going to happen. But I will say this. Even though they played in the regular season at Alabama and I had Tennessee winning, I think by the time that they get to the conference championship, their quarterback will be seasoned. He'll be experienced. He'll be ready to go. And I think Alabama does upset Tennessee and wins the conference championship, but will be left out of the college football playoff. And we'll see who I have in the college football playoff. I'm not announcing that yet. Almost did, but I'm not doing that yet. We'll do that next week here on Old Man Sports Talk. So, if you haven't already, please take the time to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. That way you get notified every time Old Man Nate goes live or drops a video. And right now, go to oldmancoffee.shop and buy some coffee. Get you some coffee. Support Old Man Nate by getting you some coffee. Get you a tumbler or get you a T-shirt. Okay. We appreciate all the support we are getting. By the way, this Thursday, if you're watching this right now, this Thursday, August 17th, from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Central, Old Man Nate will be live at a special place this week. And so we'll be talking nothing else but football, college football, pro football, NFL football. So tune in this Thursday and watch the live broadcast. I appreciate all your support. If you ever need, by the way, we're still looking for members for the Fantasy Football League. If you want to play in my Fantasy Football League and play against Old Man Nate, then go to Nathan.Darnell14 at oldmansportstalk.com and just let me know, hey, I want in the Fantasy Football League, and we will get you in. All right. The deadline to enter is August 28th. All right. Well, thanks again. Thanks for showing all your support. Thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you next time.